everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome into Morning in the Valley. It is Monday, July the 7th. Hope everybody had a good, happy, fun, most importantly, safe 4th of July weekend. Glad to be back at it after taking the holiday off on Friday. Today, we will talk with the radio voice of the Evansville Purple Aces. Jevin Redman will be with us here in about 10 minutes as we will talk some summer hoops with the Purple Aces. They are back in session, and Jevin got some time in the last couple of weeks to spend some time in the practice gym and get a peek at the 25-26 edition of the Evansville Aces. So we'll get his impressions on that. Also, he sat down with Evansville Athletic Director Ziggy Siegfried, I guess last week, maybe 2 weeks ago now, and had the discussion that seemingly every fan base was sort of just waiting on an answer. Are we in or are we out when it comes to the House settlement? Evansville has opted in, and we'll talk with Jevin about his conversation with Ziggy Siegfried coming up again about 9:10 this morning. If you're just joining us for the first time today, welcome to the insanity. If you're old hat here, welcome back. If you haven't done so already, please head over to YouTube. If you're not there watching this morning, or even if you are and you haven't done so yet, hit that little subscribe button, like, share, comment on what you see from us, and we'll try. If you can leave some questions over on YouTube, Facebook, X, wherever, we get those popping up here. Might be able to answer them during the show, but at least be able to get to you after the show. But if you subscribe, it'll help let this show continue to gain some traction here as we're now into month 4 of it here in the off season as we roll through the summer. And now we are fewer than 4 months away from the start of the college basketball season. All right, we're going to start with some headlines this morning. And on the scheduling front, we talk men a lot. There's more of a sort of internet mechanism, I guess, as much as anything, and so many accounts that follow it and track it, and filing Freedom of Information Acts and all those things that on the men's side, you sort of get the trickle out. And a lot of times on the women's side, we don't necessarily find out who they're playing until the schedule is officially released. Now, on the flip side, the women generally are done way sooner than the men. And so those non-conference schedules come out much earlier. But we did get a little bit of a sprinkle from the MTE world for the Illinois State Redbirds on the women's side, as they will be headed to Puerto Rico Thanksgiving week to play in the Discover Puerto Rico MTE. It's down in San Juan, Puerto Rico. It will be November the 26th through the 28th. That will be Wednesday through Friday of Thanksgiving week down there in Puerto Rico. And it's, look, it is a wide-ranging field. Usually these tournaments, it's either, look, we're going to go mid-majors or we're just going to go all high majors. This, you got a little high, medium, and low. Morgan State, Rice, Wake Forest, East Carolina, UCF, Hofstra, Kentucky, and Maryland. And so, at first glance, you kind of look at it and you're like, okay, they're setting this up to get a nice championship game on Thanksgiving week Friday, and you're going to get Kentucky and Maryland. But watch out for the Redbirds and Kristen Gillespie's bunch. They look to be ready to roll again this season, and would not be surprised to see them making a whole bunch of noise once they get to Thanksgiving there, and might be able to make a run and win this whole thing. Some other scheduling news, this time on the men's side. And Alex Rosinski, who is one of the guys that follows all this stuff, and he's doing all the FOIA-ing, if you will, and finding out dates and so on. Northern Iowa will be returning their home game. They'll be going to UC Irvine coming up on November the 22nd. That's the weekend prior, Saturday prior to Thanksgiving. Last year in Cedar Falls, UC Irvine came in and beat the Panthers 80-60. That UCI team ended up being really good. They were 32-7, missed out on the NCAA tournament, made it all the way to the NIT championship game, lost to Chattanooga in overtime in the finals, finished 68 in the KenPom rating. And this year, on the early projections, at least from the Bart Torvik side of things, coming in at 108. So a good, maybe could be better if they can maybe find their way back into the top 75 again, turn that into a quad 2 game for UNI, but a good road game for them out west against UC Irvine. When I was doing a little bit of the projection math, I guess is the best way to put it, and I was just sort of accidentally went down this rabbit hole. And on the Bart Torvik projections for the 25-26 season, I think the part that was caught my attention is that we have 7 Valley teams in those projections that are ranked in the top 138. Illinois State at the top of the pack at 95. And then you have Bradley, Northern Iowa, Belmont, Murray State, Drake, and SIU, who is at 138. It is the first time in 13 years that, if these projections hold, that 7 Valley teams would be in the top 138 of those Bart Torvik ratings. You have to go back to 2013 when you had Creighton and Wichita State, not in the league anymore, but you had 7 teams that year that were in the top 124. Now, Creighton and Wichita both ended up in the top 20 by the end of the year. Creighton ended up as a 7 seed. They made the round of 32. Wichita was a 9 seed. Of course, that was the year they made the Final Four. So some extraordinary seasons that might have boosted some stuff up a little bit from their numbers. But overall, it just looks, a decade and change later, this Valley this year may be as deep as it has been in a while. Now, is that going to sort of parlay itself into multiple teams into the NCAA tournament? We don't know. We've seen where it's like sometimes it's best to have that rabbit that just runs out ahead of the pack, sort of like a Drake last year, although we have debated that of whether they'd have gotten that large, but somebody that is just extraordinary, and then you get a very good second team that can join them. When you sort of have parity at the top and that many good teams, but not maybe a great team on July the 7th, let's play it out and see how it works out. How that's going to roll into things, we don't know, but that is at least something to catch my attention, that we could very well be rolling into a very good season in the Missouri Valley. All right, let's bring in the voice of the Evansville Purple Aces. He is a now 2-time guest on this ridiculous program. It is Jevin Redman. Mr. Redman, good morning to you. How is Southern Indiana treating you today?
Things are good. Had a good 4th of July, and about headed to the office here for a little bit and try to watch some of the team workouts. And those guys have been getting after here for a few weeks. I know we'll talk about that, but had a great 4th and feeling recharged and ready to go again.
I need you to do this for me. I need to count fingers. We still got all 10? Are we all good? No fireworks?
All 10. Yep. All right. The streak continues.
Good. You do not need a streak buster on that for any way, shape, or form. All right, you have had a busy week there, or busy couple of weeks, I guess, around the Evansville athletic department as the decision officially made. I'm sure it was made prior, but at least officially rolled out that the House settlement has been opted into by Athletic Director Ziggy Siegfried. Sat down with you and kind of went over all of that. Maybe it was naive in the end, and I feel like there's some momentum here as we roll into mid-July that maybe when the dust settles, we're going to be 11 for 11, and all the schools in the Valley are going to be in, which is 100% the way to go. I don't think if there was any folks that decided against it, you were just so going to be swimming upstream against the rest of the teams in the league. I thought from a way outsider view a couple of months ago when this all started, I thought Evansville might be one that just can't do it. Where did the momentum shift from your seat? Certainly not in those meetings, but from that the decision finally got made that, yeah, we've got to do this.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, that we might be naive when this is all finished, where all teams do opt in. And I think from an Evansville perspective, if you go back to, let's say, at the end of last basketball season in the spring, I wasn't sure if they would opt in or out. We had staff meetings where, different possibilities were discussed, and I really was unsure what the final decision would be. And now as we look back on it, I think your only option is really to opt in. And, as far as sharing revenue inside the department for Evansville, that becomes more of a hurdle now. We talked about trying to generate funds with our Purple Rain, the NIL. And I know with Ziggy back in April, we talked about what kind of the goal was for the university money-wise, and that was $350,000 for this upcoming season, which still put the department or the basketball team lower half Missouri Valley Conference, but still gave them a chance to compete, right? That was a realistic goal money-wise. Still need to bring in more money than $350,000. But now that kind of changes now that we opt in. And I asked Ziggy the question on the podcast, what is the amount now or the goal? And he mentioned with this revenue share and also with the NIL pool, closer to $1 million. And that's a pretty wide gap from $350,000 to almost $1 million, especially at a school like Evansville. So again, I think looking back on it, the only option was to opt in. I know the main concern was how they were going to handle the roster spots and limitations on that. And that's still kind of being discussed. So, with basketball, you can have up to 15 scholarship spots. I'm not sure Evansville will actually fulfill all 15 spots this year or in future years. They might allocate those funds to take care of the players they do have. So there's a lot of moving parts. And also you look at it from a bigger school perspective. If you go to a Power 4, let's go to a Big Ten school. We've seen them cut some of their department positions by 5 to 10%. Well, at a school like Evansville, let's be honest, we're already pretty thin in terms of the workers that we have in the department. So I'm not sure how much more cut you can do. Hopefully none. Nobody loses their job. But Ziggy did say, hey, we have to take a look at how we allocate now money that we generate, where we would use that for, maybe paying staff or the marketing budget. Those budgets might shrink a bit now. That way you can pay the players. So there's a lot of moving parts. But again, I think at the end of the day, the main decision was you had to opt in.
Yeah, and I think the part about the opting in, and yes, it opens up doors and gives you freedom to do things as, hey, we can expand some rosters here. Hey, we can offer some more scholarships here. Hey, we can now pay our players directly. But it's an option. And to your point, you don't have to do that. And so we're comfortable at 13, let's just stay. Because I don't know. And I've talked to women's coaches about this a lot, that it's like keeping 15 players on a women's side is very difficult. I mean, having 15 people on your roster, and especially now when you're paying them and it's like, I want to play, there's no coach in the country that's going to play 15 kids. So that's certainly a challenge. Now that we are sort of shifted and the goalposts always moving, you just got a fan base. Every fan base feels like they just kind of got their arms wrapped around NIL and what that is and what the impact that is on their lives. And now, okay, NIL doesn't really matter. Now we're doing this paying players and so on. Boots on the ground there in Evansville. What has been your general sense from the fan base of their acceptance to this opting in decision?
Yeah, I think for the most part, it's been positive. Still, at the end of the day, whether it's coming from the Purple Rain NIL or trying to generate revenue within the department, the goal is you have to raise more money. That's what Ziggy just kept mentioning. Hey, we have to raise more money. So I think, from a fan perspective or a supporter perspective, maybe the hope or expectation is, fans step a bit more. And that's not necessarily just, hey, handing out money so that you can generate revenue and pay players. But the hope is more people come to games, right. More people, buy merchandise. I know the department last week, they launched a 50-50 raffle. They're going to do a few of those throughout the year. I know the one that's running right now lasts throughout August. And then come the basketball season, they'll do one then as well. So that's a chance for fans to also become involved where they have a chance to win some dollars for themselves, but also contribute toward their team and also the university. So I think overall it's been accepted. There, I'm sure, is still some confusion. And, I don't know all the logistics of what this means by opting in. I know the basic surface level stuff of what it means. But I do think overall it's a good thing for schools like us because it gives us more of a roadmap of what you can and can't do and something you can kind of work toward. Whereas I think in the previous year or two, it was just, hey, we just try to gobble as much money as possible and so that we can pay players. So one thing I do want to make note of, though, is the Purple Rain LLC and the NIL Fund. Ziggy really praised the leader of that, which was Aaron Kendall, and just the job they did in a short amount of time to give the program a chance to compete these last couple of years. So Ziggy praised them, and still, Purple Rain is going to be involved. It's just not going to be the focal point like it has in the previous couple of years now with the revenue share.
Yeah, you've seen some schools, Illinois State and Bradley, they've sort of almost reconfigured the NIL space now to, we're just attacking women's basketball with this now. And for people that are, comfortable in that, because men's basketball is going to get the majority of the rev share. You mentioned the 50-50 drawing. And look, I feel like this is in some strange way, almost a hack in what a revenue hack that I will be surprised at the end of the day if this is not replicated in a lot of schools around the country, because I think there is people that donate to athletic departments, that there is always, I think at its core, you're like, hey, I want to help my team win. But when you're now asking those are people that, like the folks that spend $50,000 to go sit courtside at an NBA finals game, and everybody gets all pearl clutching about it. I'm like, those people don't even notice that they spent $50,000 to sit courtside. Like, that money doesn't matter to them. And so when you have your biggest donors, that money doesn't hit them. But when you're not trying to go to, every Jimmy and Joe out there asking for money, it's like, well, what am I getting out of it? And I think this is kind of the hack from a standpoint, to your point. You can help us, but hey, you might get something out of this too, other than just a win. And I think I think you guys are going to rack up throughout the course of the year a lot of money that you wouldn't necessarily have had prior.
Yeah, and I think with the 50-50 raffle, you're going to see different amounts depending on the time of the year. The first time something gets launched, maybe it doesn't get the most attention. Maybe it comes a second or third time around that we do a 50-50 raffle. And also, I think it kind of depends on the time of the year. So Maybe this summer into the fall, people aren't as in tune with what's going on, but come basketball season and the baseball season, more people are involved with Aces Athletics and they want to contribute toward this. So I think this is something that will grow over time. I don't think the first 50-50 raffle can be a judgment of whether this is going to be successful or not. And you look at it, this is something you can continue to do. Obviously, you have your upfront cost with the 50-50 raffle, what you have to pay for the whole system. And I don't know all the inner workings of that. But once you get past that first year, it's almost in a way kind of free money and stuff that you can do. Where people can still contribute, they can win money, and you don't have those costs that still linger. So I think this is a great idea by the department. Hopefully our fans buy in, they participate, and it can really go a long ways. But still, I think when you look back as far as fans, they always ask the question, how can we help? The biggest thing really is
go to games. Yes.
Come to games, buy tickets, buy season tickets. And I don't want to share too much on this because it has been released, but I know the department is doing a few different things with seat locations at games this year to try to generate some more money and more interest for fans to buy better seats. That'll come out probably closer toward the season, but there are some things in the workings as far as tickets, but that's my major pitch. Buy tickets, come to the game, support the team. That'll go a long way. I
have heard multiple athletic directors talking about everything about, hey, we're opting in or whatever. And at some point there is a manifesto in the middle of it of, please come to games. And that will always help. We had David Ragland on a couple of months ago. And I think the last question I softballed at him was, if you're the czar of college basketball, you can change one rule. What is it? And he said, buyouts. Yep. And now this house settlement, you're going to be able to sign kids to multi-year deals, and there's going to be contract buyouts. And Evansville has been, for lack of a better phrase, poached as much as anybody in the Missouri Valley over the last couple of years. Ben Hummerkaus going to Illinois, Gabriel Posado going to Xavier. He's got to have a smile on his face right now to, at least from a protection standpoint. We're going to lose players and we know it, but then we're getting something back and we can go, replenish our roster a whole lot easier.
Yeah, I think that's always going to happen no matter what restrictions you put on the league or college basketball. Guys are going to leave, right? You're better talents that are going to seek higher opportunities, and that's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. That's how the real world works as well. In our business, you get better jobs and you go after them. So I do like the buyout. Coach Ragland mentioned, I think that goes a long way. I think the other thing maybe you can implement is some type of salary cap for conferences. Obviously, you have the rev share, which is a little over $20 million, but that's not going to impact schools like us. So maybe break it down depending on the level and what conference you're in. You're still going to be poached by bigger schools, but at least it gives you more of a foundation to compete at the mid-major level, and everybody's kind of playing at the same level. So I don't know. I do think we're heading in a better direction, though, than what the last year or two was, and I think things will continue to improve over time. It's not going to be perfect, but again, it's better than what we had the last 2 years.
All right. You've been in the gym, putting your eyes on this team. What has been the first general impression from the summer of 25 for this incoming roster?
Yeah, I've watched a couple of workouts in June. I'll be in a lot more in July. We actually start our interview series this week. Some interviews will come out later Thursday and Friday and carry throughout July. So I'll be around quite a bit in the this month. But the one thing that stands out about this group is, and I talked with Coach Ragland back in May, is it seems like there's more of a balance in terms of guys they have picked up. And what I mean by that is you've got a handful that are experienced. They have played at the Division I level. They've proven they can play at this level. Then you kind of have the middle tier where guys, it didn't work out their last stop, didn't see a whole lot of playing time. But, you had an AJ Casey and Marlon Barnes that were at St. Louis and Pittsburgh. There's something there, and they have something to prove now here at the mid-major level. And then you have what I consider the bottom tier, not in a bad way, but the freshmen that still have not played this level, but they have the potential. I think that's different than what last year was. I thought last year's group really lacked some experience, and we saw that early in the season. They really improved come conference time. But if you go back to even 2 years ago when Evansville won 17 games, that was when Ben Hummerkaus came and made a big impact, and they had Kenny Strawbridge and Gage Bobe, some veteran guys. They had that leadership. They had players that have been through the battles. They knew what it took to lead the team. I thought last year's group lacked that some, but this year kind of gets back to more what Evansville saw 2 seasons ago. So I've been very impressed with some of the experienced guys that have come in, and I think this is a group that will be ready to compete day one because of guys like an Alex Hemingway, who's been at Clemson and Vanderbilt. Yeah. You talk about Keyshawn Porter, who was at North Carolina Central last year, averaging over 10 points a game. He's played at the Division I level. So, again, they have some veteran leadership that I'm excited to see how that gets incorporated with the group.
Connor Turnbull, the reigning defensive player of the year, who turned into really an offensive threat the back half of last season. Feel like he's going to be leaned on a lot this year and to produce more. And we need more. We need more. We need more. Just his what you know about him, his personality, and maybe it's like, okay, I'm not, it's not my team maybe necessarily, but there's going to be more of a burden to shoulder for him. How do you think from a personality standpoint he is going to be able to handle that and sort of attack that here this summer as we work towards the season?
Yeah, I think the way he played the last 8 to 10 games last season, in a way you can say it is his team, at least at the start of the year. Some other guys that are, like an Alex Hemingway, Keyshawn Porter, they haven't played here yet, so it could eventually become their type of team. But I think early on, you lean on Turnbull because of what he did last year. And, man, he was playing at a high level, both defensively and offensively. He was a defensive player of the year in the Valley. Just his shot blocking ability is incredible. It's one of the best shot blocking abilities I've seen in the Valley in my 7 years. I think for Turnbull, some other intangibles, just the way he's grown as a person, not only as a player, but I was talking to Coach Ragland last week when I stopped in. They did a mic'd up segment with Turnbull back in June at a kids camp, and he was having fun. He was very vocal and making jokes. And I mean, it's a complete 180 of what Connor Turnbull was last year, because I think he was unsure of himself a bit coming from Butler where things didn't work out. He'd been injured. He wasn't in great shape. And then that all changed throughout the course of last season. So he's a highly confident individual that I think will become a leader, both in his play and also the way he speaks to others. And I'm very excited to see what strides he makes based off last season to this year. And I think he has a chance to be Defensive Player of the Year once again in the Valley and one of the top bigs.
I think if Evansville fans need any sort of glass half full, it may be 3/4 full, is that David Ragland has shown the last couple of years he can bring in some dudes. Now, keeping them, that's a whole other argument, and that's not necessarily a him problem. That's just an infrastructure with the college basketball world. But he has brought in some dudes, and to be able to replenish that roster around guys coming back like Connor Turnbull, feel like that is a trending in the northern direction there for the Purple Aces. He's Jevin Redman, the voice of the Evansville Purple Aces. What do you got? Go ahead. The floor is yours to pump up whatever content you got firing out there from the Evansville Athletic Department.
Yeah, so I mentioned, coming up later this week, we'll have a couple of interviews with our basketball players. This week, we'll talk with Alex Hemingway and Connor Turnbull. We'll try to post 2 interviews each week. It'll be probably the back half of each week around Thursday, Friday. We'll also have some video content to go with those interviews as well. Brandon Walls, who is our GA and social media guru, does a great job capturing video throughout the summer. We'll work together. And again, that'll play throughout July and into early August. Aces fans can catch that at GoPlaces.com, my social media feed, the university's social media feeds, and also on Spotify and Apple, where we'll have those full interviews. The one thing I do want to leave Aces fans with as far as this group, last year I thought the Aces starting 5 was extremely talented. Good enough to be top half of the Valley. It was just the depth is where they lacked. And again, we're just making judgments off of summer workouts. They haven't played against anybody else yet. But what I've kind of seen is I think they'll be deeper than last year and deeper than I thought looking at this team on paper, especially at the guard position. Bryce Quinnett, who's a 6'3" guard that is coming from out west. He's from Arizona. He's ready to play right now. And I wasn't sure about him coming in, if he'd be kind of a year project. But I think with him and Kaya Berridge improving from last year, the Aces have way more depth at the guard position than I anticipated. Plus, on paper, one of their best players, Leif Moeller, who's coming from Germany. He's a 22-year-old professional player over there. He'll likely be the Aces starting point guard. He's not even here yet, but the plan is for him to be on campus in the next week to 2. So that's a big piece that hasn't been added yet. But I'm encouraged by this group, not only the talent from the starting 5, but I think they have more depth than the previous year.
Well, we talked about the depth at the top of the league, 7 teams I mentioned. No reason Evansville can't shoehorn their way into that party by the time everything is said and done. Jevin Redman, thanks for the time. Glad all 10 fingers, 10 toes still in peace here. Enjoy the week. Thanks for the time. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. See you.
All right, thank you. There's Jevin Redman. Again, I just Evansville has done such a good job of just finding guys and finding those diamonds in the rough and finding the Gabriel Posados, finding the Ben Hummerkauses, and to see them go on to places you're like, we may, and David Ragland said that when we talked to him, 6-8 weeks ago. He's like, it reaffirms my words, they know what they're doing. They have found they are doing the right things on the trail, finding guys. And it's just their problem was they just were too good in a way, and they had the vultures coming in to pluck them out. And they went on to other opportunities. The key to Jevin's point there was you had a sort of a top heavy roster with guys that were very good, just didn't maybe have the depth to get into 6, 7, and 8 to have a full rotation to really be able to make a push. But that Evansville squad this year, I feel like they've got that strong foundation in the middle with Turnbull, and then the guys around the outside, as he mentioned, from some coming from the outside in the portal that Coach Ragland able to find, I think can really make an impact here for the Aces this season. All right, back to the headlines of the morning. We've had summer league games going on out in, I believe it's in San Francisco and Salt Lake City as well. The real main event starts on Thursday out in Las Vegas with the NBA Summer League. That's a 10-day extravaganza out there. And we talked about some roster additions last week, but now we have some more fine-tuned things, specifically when we talk about former Northern Iowa standout Titan Anderson. He is going to be playing with the New Orleans Pelicans, which we told you last week. The Pelicans, they get underway in Vegas on Thursday. This is probably as much a program announcement as much as anything. Thursday, their first game, they'll play the T-Wolves. That's a 2:30 game Central Time. It'll air on ESPN2. So UNI fans, Valley fans, can check out Titan as he gets after it there with the Pelicans. Hopefully gets some run as the undrafted free agent. Most games are going to be on ESPN, ESPN2, or NBA TV. So if you are, and I have people in my life that just love the NBA Summer League, so you can pretty much get a chance to see all of it. And that'll start on Thursday, July the 10th, and it'll run through July the 20th out there in Sin City. Another member on this roster is another old friend alert, courtesy of Paul. It is Antonio Reeves, the former Illinois State guard who played at Illinois State from 2019 to 2022, played his last 2 collegiate seasons at the University of Kentucky, the 47th pick in the 2024 NBA draft, played 44 games for the Pelicans last year, bouncing around between the big club and the G League, but he'll be back in the Summer League roster there. So plenty of Valley flavor on that Pelicans roster. And again, they start playing on Thursday. Another old friend alert, this one from Valparaiso. There we go. At Valparaiso, Javon Freeman Liberty will be on the Bulls summer roster out in Vegas. He played at Valpo from 2018 to 2020. Amazing, 5 years ago now. He was a first-team All-Valley guy back in 2020. Made the All-Defensive team. Made the All-Arch Madness team as well. Played his last 2 collegiate seasons at DePaul from 2020 to 2022. But he's been bouncing around professionally, and he is going to be at it with the Bulls here this summer. They open up their Summer League schedule Friday the 11th. That's on Friday night over in Vegas. And if there has been one thing that you may have noticed in the last week or so, there has been a lot of social media interest and chatter about the FIBA U19 World Cup Championships over in Switzerland. And I think the byproduct of that, as much as anything, is that more than ever, you're starting to see international players make their way to the United States and play collegiately. And that was very much the case at Valparaiso. Speaking of the Beacons, as their 6'10" freshman, Carter Hopoy, is played, I say is, the tournament is now over, played for New Zealand in this U19 World Cup and helped New Zealand get to a 4th place finish in the world on that U19 stage. Played 7 games for New Zealand, averaged 7.5 points, almost 6 rebounds in 21 minutes a night. Had 2 assists, averaged about a steal and a block a game as well. But he played well. I mean, that's really no other way around it. Scored 13 against China in the round of 16. He had 10 in the 3rd place game that New Zealand lost to Slovenia. And, did not score in the semifinal matchup against the United States. But there was so much college talent, and you saw all these fan bases just rooting for the, if not for the countries, at least for their guys playing on those teams. And There was just a lot of attention. I know that Murray State head coach Ryan Miller was there checking out some guys as well. So it is the international. Now there are challenges with the international players, as we've talked about. Some guys, trying to get them to campus now on these student visas and just NIL rules. The international players were not able to make NIL money because they were there on a student visa, not a work visa. Now, with the revenue share, some of those rules have changed a little bit. And I was reading, and I think it was a Power Four commissioner that was trying to get clarification. Might even have been the NCAA president. I don't remember, a couple weeks ago that I read that they were trying to get some clarification just to make sure that the teams could rev share with the international players, because it wasn't a job. They don't need a work visa to play college basketball, but that will again change the calculus a little bit. But it was good to see Carter Hopeway having a good week over there in Switzerland, and he will be back on campus with Valpo here soon enough as the Beacons prepare for their 25-26 season. All right, that just about does it for this Monday edition, July the 7th, here on Morning in the Valley. Glad you have been with us today. Coming up on Wednesday, we are scheduled to have as a guest the sharpshooter from Indiana State, Camp Wagner. He will be with us. We'll have Tyler Lumblade from Belmont on in the very near future as well. So now that the guys we're over the 4th of July hump now. So really July, everybody's back on campus, teams working out. There'll be a little bit of a dead period once we get to August again as well, as they go to a literal dead period from a recruiting standpoint. That's kind of the last gasp of vacation time for players and coaches before they get back in the fall and classes start. And then it is a sprint from there until the first week of March, hopefully the fourth week of March. But so a busy week coming up here on Morning in the Valley. If you haven't done so already, please head over to YouTube, subscribe to the show there. Just search out Morning in the Valley, subscribe, like, share, comment, all that good stuff. We appreciate all your continued support here as we begin month number 4 of this little project. I feel like it's working pretty well. I appreciate you guys for watching and listening and commenting and all that stuff that you've done, and very much appreciate it. We'll have Camp Wagner here on Wednesday. Thanks for watching. As always, Morning